Have you ever noticed how the older you get, the more you value silence over noise, peace over parties, and stillness over small talk? Maybe you once loved to drop by unannounced, laugh around a crowded dinner table, or say yes to every invitation without hesitation. But now things feel different. Not worse, not better, just different. And that shift you're feeling? It's not loneliness, it's wisdom. At Calm Voice Wellness, we believe aging isn't a process of losing parts of yourself. It's the art of returning to who you truly are. Today, we'll walk you through the quiet power behind withdrawing from constant social interaction after 70, and why it could be the healthiest thing you've done in decades. We'll explore not just the why, but the how, and give you tools, insights, and peace of mind along the way. Let's begin with this idea. Your energy is no longer infinite, and that's okay. In our younger years, we often behave like time is a resource we'll never run out of. We scatter our attention in 100 directions: work, family, errands, social events, and in doing so, we spread ourselves thin in the name of connection. But by the time we reach our 70s, we've lived long enough to know the cost of energy wasted on shallow relationships, noisy environments, or conversations that never really go beyond the surface. There's a quiet revolution that takes place inside you, one that says, I no longer need to be everywhere. I only need to be where I feel peace. Take Margaret, for example. She used to host every holiday party, never missed a birthday, always kept her planner full. But in her early 70s, she found herself dreading the preparations, the loud voices, the strain of being on. One day, she told her daughter, I just want to have tea with someone who doesn't need me to perform. That single sentence changed her life. This isn't about becoming antisocial. It's about becoming intentional. From a medical standpoint, this shift isn't surprising. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that social fatigue is real, especially in older adults whose cognitive load and sensory processing capacity naturally decline. Our brains are designed to conserve energy as we age, focusing more on internal reflection than external stimulation. That's why high-volume interactions, noisy restaurants, or chaotic gatherings feel so exhausting. They're neurologically taxing. And here's something else most people don't say out loud. Not all relationships deserve lifelong maintenance. Many of us feel a sense of duty to stay connected with everyone we've ever known. But the truth is, healthy aging requires pruning. Just as a tree grows stronger when its dead branches are trimmed, your emotional life becomes richer when you gently release connections that no longer nourish you. Maybe it's the cousin who always brings up politics, or the old friend who only calls when they need something, or the group you've outgrown but still meet out of habit. If these interactions leave you feeling tense, drained, or unseen, what are you really gaining? Instead, imagine choosing to see just a few people each week. People who make you feel safe, who let you be quiet without questioning it, who don't need you to be anyone but yourself. These aren't just visits. These are healing exchanges, the kind that lower your blood pressure, calm your nervous system, and restore your emotional balance. That's not romanticism. It's science. Studies in geriatric mental health reveal that meaningful social interaction, defined not by quantity but by emotional quality, correlates strongly with reduced rates of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline in seniors. A 15-minute heartfelt talk with someone who sees your soul is worth more than a 3-hour party where you feel invisible. And let's be honest, many visits in later life are filled with subtle expectations. You're expected to stay longer than you'd like. You're expected to answer awkward questions. You're expected to pretend you're more energetic than you really are. But who made those rules? Rewriting your social habits is one of the most empowering things you can do after 70. It's a return to your inner compass. And that compass doesn't point toward the loudest room or the fullest schedule. It points to peace. Sometimes that peace looks like staying home and watering your plants, or rereading your favorite novel with a warm blanket. or enjoying a quiet meal in your favorite chair with no pressure to entertain. These aren't signs of isolation, they're signs of self-respect. Let's also talk about something many older adults face but rarely articulate: the cost of emotional labor in social settings. Even when you love the people you visit, it takes effort to smile when you're tired, to make conversation when you're mentally foggy, or to be pleasant when your back is aching. And so, you begin choosing stillness. It's not an escape. It's not weakness. It's not giving up on people. It's choosing to protect your most precious asset, your peace of mind. At this stage in life, peace isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity for both mental and physical health. In fact, modern gerontology emphasizes how chronic stress, even from seemingly mild social pressures, can lead to inflammation, elevated cortisol levels, and worsened sleep in older adults. That friendly brunch that drains you, it might be subtly sabotaging your immune system. That cousin's visit that feels more like an interrogation than a conversation, it could be raising your heart rate for all the wrong reasons. So ask yourself this: when did we stop listening to the signals our bodies send? Your hesitation before accepting an invitation? That tight feeling in your chest when someone guilt trips you into visiting? The sudden relief you feel when plans are canceled? Those aren't random. Those are your nervous system saying, please, let's rest. And rest doesn't mean doing nothing. It means choosing what truly restores you. For some, it's a peaceful morning routine, opening the blinds, feeding the birds, watching sunlight fill the room. For others, it's deep reflection, journaling, praying, meditating. These are not lonely activities. These are acts of intimacy with your own soul. This brings us to another truth. Your home isn't just where you live, it's where you heal. Think about how long it's taken to create your space. The way your chair faces the window, the photos you chose to display, the exact spot on the kitchen counter where your favorite cup rests. These aren't small details. They are part of the emotional architecture of safety. Leaving that space, even for well-meaning visits, can feel jarring. Uncomfortable chairs, loud rooms, unfamiliar smells. These things affect you more than they used to. That's not being too sensitive. That's your nervous system becoming more selective, more aware. Raymond, a retired teacher, once shared, "I started to notice that every time I came home from visiting my sister's house, I felt like I needed a day to recover. Not because I didn't love her, but because the noise, the kids, the constant questions, it overwhelmed me. Now I ask her to visit me. And we sit in silence, together. That's our new rhythm." There's something profoundly beautiful about that, about rewriting what connection looks like. Because here's the deeper truth. You don't owe everyone your presence. You owe yourself your well-being. We live in a culture that confuses busyness with importance and activity with vitality. But just because you're always somewhere doesn't mean you're truly living. Sometimes the richest moments happen in the pause between two thoughts, in the sip of tea at sunset, in the exhale after letting go of an obligation that no longer fits. Aging, in its highest form, is the art of unlearning everything that once felt necessary, but never really was. You don't have to attend every birthday. You don't have to call every week. You don't even have to explain yourself. The people who truly love you will understand that your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. And this brings us to the emotional centerpiece of everything we're saying. True friendships don't demand, they accept. Think of the people in your life who make you feel light, not performative, not pressured, just at ease. Maybe you haven't spoken in months, but when you do, it's like no time has passed. That's not a coincidence. That's resonance. Neurologists call this relational security. It's when your brain, your body, and your spirit all agree. This person is safe. I don't have to overthink, overtalk, or overjustify. I can just be. If you have even one person like that, treasure them. And if you don't, be that person for yourself. Because contrary to popular belief, solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the foundation of all genuine connection. When you're whole within, you no longer chase external validation. You no longer need to explain why you'd rather stay in than go out. You no longer carry guilt for putting your well-being first. Let's take Evelyn as an example. In her younger years, she was the bridge between everyone in her family, the peacemaker, the host, the reliable one. But at 74, she decided to stop being the glue. It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. She told her children, "I'm not withdrawing, I'm coming home to myself." And they didn't understand at first. But over time, they saw it. They saw the peace in her eyes, the steadiness in her voice, the joy she found in bird watching, in sketching, in simply being. And slowly, they stopped asking her to be everywhere, because they started seeing her as she truly was, not who they needed her to be. That's the power of quiet boundaries. They don't push people away. They invite people to meet you where you are. And where you are right now is a place of wisdom, a place where you no longer equate self-worth with productivity, a place where you know that real connection isn't about how often you show up, but how fully you're present when you do. And when you understand that, you stop measuring your life by how full your calendar is. You begin measuring it by something far more meaningful, your sense of peace, your emotional clarity, your ability to breathe freely in your own skin. That's the shift that often goes unnoticed from the outside. People might wonder why you've declined more invitations lately. They might whisper about how you're slowing down, as if that's something to be feared. But what they don't see, what they can't see, is the richness that comes from slowing down with purpose. Because slowing down doesn't mean you're fading. It means you're finally listening. And when you listen, you begin to hear the quiet voice inside that says, "This moment, right here, is enough." You don't need the noise of a crowd to feel alive. You don't need to prove your relevance through constant interaction. You've lived enough life to know that the best conversations often happen in whispers, not shouts. That presence isn't about physical nearness. It's about emotional resonance. This is especially important when it comes to family. For many older adults, the pressure to keep showing up, birthdays, reunions, holidays, can feel like an emotional weight. Even when the intention is love, the expectation can feel like obligation. But love that demands performance isn't love. It's performance. The healthiest families evolve together. They allow each member to change shape, to grow softer in some areas and firmer in others. They understand that just because grandma isn't at every barbecue doesn't mean she loves you any less. It might just mean her joints hurt, or her hearing makes big groups exhausting, or maybe, just maybe, she's found peace in her own garden that she never found in a loud kitchen. And here's a truth no one tells you when you turn 70. You're allowed to love people from a distance. It doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you real. Think of love like light. The sun doesn't have to sit in your living room to warm your skin. You don't have to be in someone's house every weekend to hold them in your heart. Sometimes the strongest love is the kind that honors space. In fact, this concept is mirrored in psychological research. Attachment theory, when applied to elder populations, shows that secure emotional bonds can flourish even with low physical frequency, as long as trust, respect, and empathy are present. That means the twice-a-month phone call, if genuine, can be more nurturing than weekly visits full of stress and surface talk. Let's revisit Grace. She used to spend every Sunday with her daughter's family, but the visits were often loud, rushed, and laced with subtle tension. Her son-in-law made backhanded comments about her memory. The grandkids were glued to their screens. No one asked how she was really doing. So one day, she gently said, "I love you all very much, but I need to start spending Sundays in a way that helps me recharge." At first, there was silence, a bit of confusion, but Grace didn't waver. Instead, she invited her daughter over for tea on Wednesday afternoons. Just the two of them. No distractions, no expectations. And slowly, the relationship deepened. Not because they saw each other more, but because they saw each other better. That's what happens when you move through life with intention. You stop scattering your energy. You start gathering your joy. And sometimes, that joy is quiet, uneventful, unremarkable to the outside world. But to you, it's everything. A warm meal made slowly, a photo album opened just to smile, a radio playing Ella Fitzgerald while you fold laundry. These moments, these simple, sacred moments, are the heartbeat of a life well lived. This is where mental wellness in older age truly begins, not with medication, not with forced positivity, but with the radical acceptance of your own rhythm. And when you find that rhythm, you stop apologizing for it. You don't need to explain why you'd rather stay home. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to convince anyone that solitude feels safer than social performance. You just live honestly. Because mental health after 70 isn't about resisting change. It's about welcoming the changes that finally serve you. It's about allowing your body to speak, allowing your mind to slow down, allowing your heart to soften without fear of being misunderstood. And here's the most empowering part of all. The more you live this way, the more you give others permission to do the same. Your children start to see that saying no can be an act of love. Your friends stop asking why you aren't coming and start asking what makes you feel safe. The people who truly matter meet you where you are and stop asking you to leave your peace behind just to make them comfortable. That's how mental wellness becomes a legacy. That's how mental wellness becomes a legacy. Not a loud legacy with awards or accolades, but a quiet, graceful one. A legacy that whispers, I lived fully by choosing peace over pressure, and I loved deeply by honoring truth over tradition. And perhaps the most unexpected part of this journey is how the less you chase, the more you receive. Less chasing after people, and suddenly you find those who genuinely reach out. Less pushing yourself to attend events, and suddenly the right invitations feel more aligned. Less trying to prove your worth. And you discover that your mere presence was always enough. This inner shift, from external seeking to internal grounding, is where emotional resilience truly begins to blossom in later life. It's what psychologists now refer to as post-retirement identity rebalance, the recalibration of self-worth not through roles or responsibilities, but through presence and authenticity. And it's not always easy. There are days you may question whether pulling away means being forgotten. Days when silence feels less like serenity and more like absence. But these are just passing clouds. They don't define the sky. Because in the stillness, you are not disappearing. You are reappearing to yourself. You are showing up in your own life, not as the helper, the hostess, the fixer, or the dependable one, but simply as you. And that is more than enough. There's a special kind of healing that comes when you allow yourself to stop chasing what no longer nourishes you. When you give yourself permission to rest without guilt, to choose calm over chaos, to say, this moment in my quiet chair is just as valuable as any gathering. And when you start living from that place of truth, the people who truly love you stop asking you to change. They begin to adjust to your rhythm instead of expecting you to match theirs. They meet you in the quiet. They honor your boundaries. They don't just love the version of you that shows up when you're energetic. They love the version that whispers, today, I need stillness. That's when you know you've cultivated something rare. Relationships built not on performance, but on presence. This shift also brings clarity to the people you no longer need to hold on to. Because the truth is, some connections served a version of you that no longer exists. And while that doesn't erase the past, it frees your future. You stop picking up the phone just because it's expected. You stop saying yes out of fear of being rude. You stop watering friendships that haven't grown in years. And in that space, something beautiful happens. You make room for new energy. Sometimes it comes through reconnecting with old friends in a softer way. Other times, it's meeting kindred spirits who understand the quiet you now crave. Like the woman Raymond met at the library. She too had stopped going to weekly bridge club. They struck up a conversation about a poetry book. No pressure, no performance, just two people sharing a love of words, sitting side by side in silence. That moment became a gentle friendship. No grand gestures, just mutual respect and presence. This is the new rhythm. Not rushing, but flowing. Not proving, but simply being. And in that being, you find wellness. Not just physical or cognitive, but emotional and spiritual wellness that strengthens everything else. Because we now know that emotional dissonance, living in contradiction with your needs, takes a measurable toll on the aging brain. Neuroscientists have shown that cortisol spikes caused by chronic social overextension can lead to sleep disruptions, memory fog, and even decreased immune resilience. But the opposite is also true. Calm, clarity, and emotional authenticity can enhance neuroplasticity, improve sleep cycles, and lower blood pressure, which means that your decision to stay home, to choose silence, to turn inward, it isn't just good for the soul, it's healing your body too. Your nervous system thanks you for every no you say that protects your peace. Your heart thanks you for every boundary that keeps it from breaking. Your mind thanks you for every quiet moment you choose over overstimulation. This is the science of self-respect, the biology of serenity, the deep medicine of living honestly. And so, if you've stopped visiting people as often, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom, know this: you are not alone. You are part of a quiet movement of elders who are reclaiming their energy, their time, and their truth. You are choosing what modern psychology calls selective investment, pouring your limited, precious emotional energy into only the people and moments that genuinely matter. And that's not just a smart choice, it's a sacred one. And it's sacred because it honors something this world often forgets to value: the wisdom of restraint. We live in a culture addicted to more connection, more interaction, more presence. But wisdom, especially the kind that ripens with age, teaches us that more is not always better. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and others is to stop showing up where you no longer feel seen. This isn't abandonment. It's alignment. You're aligning your time with your truth, your actions with your energy, your presence with your purpose. And when that alignment happens, your entire being exhales, your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your mind unclenches. Because finally, you are not pretending to be okay in places that exhaust you. You are choosing peace. And let's be honest, peace is underrated. Because it's invisible. It doesn't shout. It doesn't show up in photos. You can't brag about it at reunions. But when you have it, you feel it in your bones. Peace is the sigh of relief when you cancel a plan that no longer serves you. Peace is the smile you wear after a long, quiet afternoon alone with your thoughts. Peace is knowing you don't have to explain your choices to anyone to validate them. That kind of peace, it's priceless. And at this stage of life, it's the most important currency you have. Think of your days now as a sacred garden. You don't plant in every corner. You don't water every weed. You tend to the roses that still bloom. You sit in the shade that nourishes you. You rest where the sun hits just right. This is your life, and it is no longer about managing other people's expectations. It's about honoring your own needs. And sometimes honoring those needs means telling the truth. I don't have the energy today. I love you, but I need space. I'd rather stay home. Please visit me here instead. These truths might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've lived your life as a giver, a caretaker, the reliable one. But boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges to your well-being, to clarity, to honest relationships that don't rely on guilt or guessing games. Remember Elaine? She spent decades being the organizer, the emotional anchor for everyone. She never missed a birthday, a graduation, a family dinner. But she began to notice how every event left her drained, not just physically but spiritually, like she'd poured from a cup that no one was refilling. So she made a gentle shift. She didn't stop loving her family. She just stopped showing up in the same way. She started sending heartfelt cards instead of attending every function. She began inviting her grandchildren for one-on-one walks instead of big chaotic parties. She found new ways to connect, ones that preserved her energy and deepened the moments that mattered most. And you know what happened? Her family adapted. The ones who truly valued her presence learned to meet her halfway. And the ones who didn't? They simply drifted, like leaves in the wind. And that was okay too, because she wasn't shrinking. She was refining. That's what aging invites us to do. Not to become less, but to become more precise, more deliberate, more aware of where we place our heartbeats. Every no you say is a yes to something else. Your health, your peace, your freedom. And it's not selfish. It's sacred stewardship. Because here's the quiet truth no one tells you when you're older. Your energy is now holy. It is not unlimited. It is not to be spent out of obligation. It is to be offered, like incense, deliberate, intentional, sacred. And when you offer it, it should be to people, places, and moments that honor it. Not drain it. Not question it. Not make you feel like you owe them an explanation for the life you've chosen to live gently. So, if you found yourself visiting less, socializing less, saying no more, it doesn't mean you're closing off. It means you've opened up to something deeper, yourself. And the truth is, your relationship with yourself is the longest, most important connection you'll ever have. And the truth is, your relationship with yourself is the longest, most important connection you'll ever have. So it makes sense that, in this season of life, you finally return home to yourself. Not just your physical home, but the deeper home within. The place that has waited patiently for decades, beneath all the roles you've played, the people you've cared for, the events you've attended, the expectations you've tried to meet. That home has always been there. But now, you finally have the time, the courage, and the clarity to live in it. And it's within this inner sanctuary that real wellness begins to flourish. Not the kind of wellness that depends on supplements or fitness routines, though those matter too, but the core wellness that comes from alignment between your body, mind, and spirit. Because you can eat the best food, take the best medications, follow the best regimens. But if you are constantly tired from giving too much of yourself away, healing will always feel out of reach. So what does healing look like now? Sometimes, it's not dramatic. It's not a breakthrough or a transformation or a retreat in the mountains. Sometimes, healing is quietly reclaiming your mornings, making your tea slowly, putting on soft clothes, reading a chapter instead of rushing to a phone call, lighting a candle not for anyone else, but just because you love the scent. Sometimes, healing is turning off the TV when the news feels too heavy. It's choosing music instead, or silence, or prayer, or nothing at all. It's noticing how your body speaks to you now, how it says enough a little sooner than it used to, how it aches in places that used to feel strong, how it asks for rest, not because it's weak, but because it's wise. The body isn't betraying you. It's inviting you to listen, because everything your body does now is an act of communication. And the more you listen without judgment, the more peace you find. We often think of aging as decline. But what if we saw it as refinement, a shedding, a simplification, a sacred return to essence? What if the aches and limits weren't signs of losing, but signs of distilling, boiling life down to what truly matters? Think of it this way. You are not becoming less. You are becoming more yourself than you've ever been. And when you embrace that, you no longer see fewer visits, fewer events, fewer people as a loss. You see it as a deep, powerful shift in how you relate to the world. Let's go back to Martin. Remember him? He used to drive across town twice a week to play cards with an old group of friends. But the laughter started fading. The conversations turned shallow. The energy didn't feel nourishing anymore. So, instead of forcing it, he stopped going. At first, he felt guilty, but eventually he realized his choice wasn't about abandoning connection. It was about choosing authenticity over habit. Now he plays cards with just one friend, John, every other Friday. They don't even keep score anymore. They just talk. They share memories. They sit in silence when words aren't needed. And somehow those 2 hours feel deeper than all the noisy nights combined. That's what becomes possible when you stop showing up everywhere and start showing up fully, only where it matters. Because presence is not about quantity, it's about depth. And now you understand that deeply. You understand that stillness is a form of strength. You understand that space is a kind of medicine. You understand that being unavailable to the world can be a way of becoming available to your soul. So when people ask why you don't visit as much anymore, you don't owe them a long explanation. You can smile gently. You can say, "I'm just doing what feels right for me these days." And if they love you, truly love you, they'll understand. Because the ones who are meant to walk with you in this chapter will not ask you to abandon yourself just to keep walking with them. They will slow down. They will sit beside you. They will meet you where peace lives. And if some people don't, let them go lovingly. Not everyone is meant to walk with us forever, and that doesn't make them bad or you wrong. It just means your paths have changed. It just means your paths have changed. And you? You've earned the right to walk your own path now. Slowly, quietly, gently. Because your worth has never been tied to how often you're seen, how often you show up, or how well you fit into someone else's plan. Your worth is inherent, sacred, unshakable. You are not less because you stay home more. You are not distant because you say no more often. You are not selfish because you've started honoring your peace above all else. You are simply becoming more you.